right, now you're in a talking position. So welcome to New Teacher Mentoring Training, and we're going to be talking about conducting observations, because it's about the season that you're in right now. And some of you even had questions about how do I do observations, and so we're going to entertain those tonight. But let's do a quick around the room introduction, because I'm sure not everybody knows everybody. So tell us who you are, and are you mixed side or pick side or both sides, and where you're teaching. And yay, come on in, and we'll wait for her to come in and sign in. And did you have her? Oh, there you go. Let's start at our back table. Sorry.
I'll go ahead. I'm Julie Stuns. I'm research specialist at Corsville Elementary.
Very good. For me.
I'm Liz Sanchez. I teach 5th grade here at Easton, and I am a mentor for Mick.
I'm Caitlin Morgan. I teach history at Minarets High School in Chiloniki, and I'm a Mick.
Yay, the first one from Minarets in a long time.
I'm Eric Gibson. I have two students. I have one PIP and one intern, and I'm retired. I was a science teacher at Madera South and Madera High School for longer than I care to.
So you're in the pre-credential teachers.
Yes.
Yes.
Kathleen Kennedy. I have a MIC inductee candidate, and I'm at Madera South High School.
Sherman Thomas Charter School. I teach the 4th grade, and I have a MIC and a STEP.
And your name is?
Lavina Arter, sorry.
Lavina Arter.
I'm Nancy Garcia, and I'm at Western Sierra Charter Schools in Fresno, and I am a Mick or single subject, like you said.
Very good.
I'm Jessica Clark. I'm over at Desmond. I teach special ed math, 7th and 8th grade, and I'm a Mick.
I'm Bob Austin. I'm also from Desmond. I teach math there also, and I am my mentee is a mentor. Mentee is a Mick.
Your mentee's a mentor? Wow.
Let me have the mentor.
Long day, Bob?
Yeah.
My name is Lisa Rogers. I'm a deaf and hard of hearing specialist from Madera County, and I have 2 induction candidates, and I'm a Mick.
I'm Lisa Moreno. I'm with the Early Start Program in Madera County, and I'm a Mick.
Yay, yay. All right. So I know you've been dying to ask if you have questions. Uh-oh, I forgot to put the Crumlin in the little slot here. Is that the official word, Crumlin? Doohickey? All right. What are your questions? What are your concerns? How are things going out there? You've been at it now for a couple of weeks, and it can be daunting. What's going on? How are you doing?
We had questions about the journal,
Okay.
and we weren't sure quite exactly what was wanted in the first one, because I know we were looking at the example, but it was a little bit later on, and the standards obviously weren't the same. And then also, I wanted to make sure I did mine. Okay, Jessica glanced at it and said it was okay, so
Unless there's
we're
a
good?
problem, I won't see your collab log. She
Okay.
only brings them to my attention when there's a glaring omission or
Okay.
something of that nature. So she's running that, and that's payroll. So
Okay.
that's what you especially need that. As far as the MIC journals are concerned, we want them to be taking notes along the way. They can either do those electronically, where they're opening up their assignment and actually typing on it while you guys are sitting together, or, and I'm kind of old school, with a legal pad and pen or a journal or a comp book, and then with the dated entry. So you might have said on September 4th we talked about our room arrangement, and the teacher might have said, I realized I didn't have a lot of decorations on the wall, and I asked questions about how do you order stuff, what kind of things can we put on the wall, where do they go, and so that's what the journal would say.
And that would go under the category of
Just in time.
okay.
Okay, so the journal does go in the just-in-time form.
Yes, your questions from the reflection, which are gonna be posted, today's Wednesday,
Tuesday.
Tuesday, they'll be in there by Friday.
The new ones for October?
Yes. Yeah, because I had to edit them based on the training we had last time with the veterans, and we edited, so they'll be in there along with a new collaboration log and a journal assignment for both sides. They'll all hit in the classroom on Friday. So the reason we call it just in time is that, frankly, that's what the standards said. That they wanted just in time mentoring, and we kind of kicked that around and thought about it, and what does that look like? And the real issue is, how do I take care of the day-to-day in the classroom stuff? How do I order things? Where do I park? How do I keep Larry from blurting out an answer? I'm sorry, I should have that. That's my email since going crazy here. Let me put it on silent. And so, on your collaboration log, you just put a little bullet point, talked about classroom arrangement, or talked about routines. But they're going to talk about, we talked about my routines, and that I needed to establish them and make sure that they were mastered before. So I practiced this last week, right? So now they're reflecting a little bit about the advice that you gave them on their journal. In the next section, it's the long-term analysis, or in the PIC side, it's progression towards my credential. So on the PIC side, it's actually kind of short. I'm studying for my CSETs, I got to get ready for Eureka. I have a TPA that I'm putting together. I met with my financial aid, and there's not a lot of dialogue there, but in MIC, there is a lot of dialogue. So we talked about my goal for tightening up my routines, because that was my goal. So we looked at what routines I have and identified them, and decided that I needed more, but I couldn't introduce them all at once. So I introduced 3 new routines this week, and here is what I did. And here's how it affected outcomes. And then when it goes down to the evidence, you could say, that person could say, I talked to my mentor about routines. That is actually one of the professional development or pathway activities that they can do. One of the things I asked a teacher today to do is to talk to 10 other teachers on campus about how they use the digital format for discipline at South High School, because they have a Google form, but not everybody got on board with it last year. And so I asked that teacher to go and ask 10 other teachers how they use it and how many referrals they've had a year, so that he could kind of gauge where he's at or she's at. That's the long-term analysis. My goal is to have rigorous classroom management, including well spelled out routines. So now I'm implementing. The description of the evidence could simply be, I had a conversation with my mentor on, or I talked to 4 teachers about their routines on, or I observed a teacher who has really great routines, or I went to Desmond and watched Don Duncan and his PEPIS mastery with his routines in his art class, even though I teach chemistry.
So the long-term analysis and the evidence are closely
Absolutely.
Okay.
Say that again?
Long-term analysis and the evidence are closely aligned.
Okay.
So you can be talking about different things in the long-term analysis, and then you pull 2 or 3 things for evidence and then discuss that.
Okay.
Yes?
How much do we need to talk about the just-in-time questions? Because both of the mentors that both of the ICs that I'm working with have been in the classroom for a few years. So like, they know how to log in mistakes. They know how to do all of that. So what I'm talking about is like, you have a new kid who has severe ADHD, and you're seeing a lot of behaviors. Let's talk about sensory integration. So my just-in-time questions don't seem as...
There is a suggestion.
Okay.
You do not have to cover everything in the just-in-time questions. In fact, not only is it a suggestion, but it's very broad, because we're going preschool to high school with the same questions. And so not every one of them is going to pertain. You may not have to worry about Halloween and dressing up and what are the procedures. Or,
but for a first-year teacher, that might be
right?
something that comes up.
So you don't have to talk about that. Okay. So those are great questions. Yes?
So, I was supposed, both of my students asked me to ask this. Is that what you mean by the evidence to collect? the journal,
In the PIC side of things, it could be, I really don't want the evidence, really. I probably should edit that out, to be honest. But if they were to throw in their CSAT score, or their RICA score, or their TPA score, or something like that, probably would be evidence that we're looking for. But that's about it.
and their journals.
And their journals, but their journals are
They're
nowhere
different.
near
Right.
rigorous like MIC,
I'm getting that impression. Yeah.
right?
I've never seen one
Yeah,
for the MIC.
they're meant to be just an opportunity. So I'll say it this way: a MIC journal should take an hour and a half to 2 hours to write. A PIC journal should take about 20 minutes to write. And the reason that we have such a different philosophy for those programs is that we want them just to survive the year. And I have learned that by piling on assignments and expectations isn't helpful, it's burdensome. And they're like, oh crap, I got another box I gotta check every week and it isn't helping me. Versus, let me just reflect a little bit about my classroom. Gosh, how can I get better at? That's really all I want them to do. Plus, some of them, as you was mentioning, they're 5 years in the classroom already and they're now into induction. You might have a teacher that's 3-4 years into PIC. What they need is, how do I get to pass? I need help studying for my test. I need help with, and that's okay too. If that's your, if that's where your candidate is, and what they need help is in crossing the finish line of passing an exam, but not classroom help because they're good to go there. Great. Spend all your time on test prep. You have the discretion, and they'll let you know what their needs are. But passing those tests for a PIP, STIP, and intern is as important as succeeding in the classroom, because they don't pass, they won't be in the classroom. And then we want you to nag them a little bit too about signing up for financial aid, registering for classes, and that sort of thing.
Something that came up a couple weeks ago, so we had training with our inductees, and then the next
ILP and
day,
journal writing.
and the next day I have like my scheduled hour with my person, and we didn't kind of run out of things to talk about because we had so much time to collaborate, and so the meeting was short, and so and on average it's an hour, so it doesn't matter if sometimes it's a little shorter, I mean, obviously it's tends to be longer. Like the week before that, we had met for 2 hours.
I would say that you're looking at an average of an hour. But I also would say this: it's okay to spend some time visiting and getting to know your teachers, and at least the first 10 minutes. But on that kind of an occasion, you could relax and visit a bit. How's it going with? And because we're building relationships, and that's foundational, especially this early in the year. So that's okay too.
But if it shows like 2 hours in 1 week and half an hour, I mean, it's a random thing, but I think that Brandon was nervous, like, oh, we're not meeting the 1 hour.
You know,
like, I think
average,
we're gonna be
average
good.
now.
We're gonna have a long year.
Yeah, and you're gonna ramp things up as we start digging deeper into the goals. He's gonna go learn something. He's gonna research something on the internet. How do I make this work? Or he's gonna come to you and say, I tried this, but it didn't work. And then you're going to have, in a moment, we're going to talk about observations. There's a pre-observation meeting, the observation, and a post-observation meeting. That's going to take 3 weeks all on its own. So,
Just like we get evaluated, we're doing the same thing.
but you're not evaluating, and that's really critical
Okay.
to understand that.
Okay.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that a lot today. I want you to be a mirror.
Oh.
And we're even going to learn the difference between opinion and fact. So for instance, if you were watching from the back of the room and you saw 2 kids put their head on the desk, you might write, saw 2 kids off task who were asleep in class not paying attention. Well, that's opinion actually, because all you really know is 2 kids put their head down on the desk.
Right.
What you don't know is, like in an elementary setting, those 2 kids may have had a headache and their mom was called, but they're out in the fields and there's no way to go home and there's no nurse at Easton, so hello, they're going to put their heads down on the desk and that's the way it is. I'm aware that, but they're not off task, they're doing what they were instructed to do. So we don't know that always. So all we write is observe 2 kids not writing while the rest of the class is writing. Or 2 kids put their heads down, or 1 kid consistently got up all the time, while other kids asked to get up. And what's interesting is now when we present it as data, then the teacher can't argue with you. It's no longer, you can argue with an opinion, you can't argue with that. And what does it say? Gosh, I didn't realize that student was getting up all the time. You know, it's weird. You can identify, this kid was constantly up all the time while the other one's asked. And the teacher will go, really? Yeah! 17 times I counted. What? And they're not even aware of it because they're so engrossed in what it happens. It happens. And so when we present that as data, like a mirror, then a teacher goes, oh my gosh, I have a problem that needs to be corrected, where they never knew that before. But if you went in and said, you have a problem that needs to be corrected, immediately, I know how I react. Oh yeah? I don't think so, because I'm Mr. Thornton, I know it all, right? And I don't have a problem. You have a problem, right? I'm already defensive.
Right.
But if I say, look, here's the data, you got up 17 times, I didn't even know, oh my gosh, now I gotta put it on the census. So we're gonna talk about that.
Are you going to address tonight what we do in a special ed resource specialist setting where she doesn't have a classroom, or I don't know if there's a classroom for me to observe her in? I mean, a little small group of maybe 3 or 4.
That's it, that's what you get to observe.
How about an IEP too?
You can, okay, so one of the things we want to do, even if you're Eric and Pick, is that your observations are going to be very focused. So it has to pertain to the ILP.
Okay.
So if her goal is somehow incorporated into conducting student study teams and reviewing IEPs, which I don't know that it is,
I don't think so.
then it would not be a setting for you to go and observe because it's not part of her goal. So we're going to look back at their goals. It's going to be the conversation that you're having. I've got these 3 kids, I don't know how to, and my goal was, and so now you're going to observe to see if you can offer suggestions on making that goal go farther, or there may have been something she said, I'm going to try that. Oh good, I'm going to come watch you try that. Or I tried that last week and I'm going to try it again this week. Let me see how it
So even if
goes.
it's the same little group all 4 times?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Oh, absolutely.
all right.
Because when we're asking our secondary teachers, and I probably didn't even put this in the notes, but I want you to just look at one class. And in our elementary, probably one subject.
Okay.
And in particular, we go back to those outcomes for our elementary teachers that say, probably in a core subject of math, science, or English, that's what we're going to go and particularly focus those 4 observations on.
Okay.
Secondary, you're going to pick one class and stick with it, because you want to see the growth over time, and we need those consistent students to see the changes.
When you say pick one class, you mean
One period.
Oh, 1 period, okay.
And be consistent with that one period throughout the year. Yeah, otherwise, isn't it true that, especially secondary teachers, you know that like 3rd period's a dream and everything works, and
Yes.
4th period falls apart every time because they're hungry and they haven't eaten lunch? Or I always had like after lunch. After break was always bad too, because when I was teaching, this is how old I am, they would sell kids these 44-ounce things of Mountain Dew in the snack bar. You know what happens 10 minutes after class starts? I had to go to the bathroom.
Right.
And then there was this big movement that ushered in, you can only have water at the secondary level. I don't even think you can have juice, can you? Water? Milk and water. Do they still throw milk? At Madera High School, they used to throw it over the gym floor, the Flores gym. So if you're the freshman hanging out by the bus loading zone at lunch, shoo! It wasn't until you were a senior you got to be cool enough to be in the courtyard and throw milk.
Right.
All right, I'm happy to answer more questions. So what do you got?
I have a question about scheduling the observations. Do we just do that with ourselves? I mean, is there a certain time that we have to do that, a certain period, so that you can have the data
You choose.
by a certain date?
No, you choose.
Okay. And that it's twice
A semester.
this semester? Okay.
And 2 more next semester.
Okay.
which if you did one now, October, November, December, and then you come right back at Christmas break and did one in January, February, March, it's about every other month.
Okay.
Yes,
But if I already did one,
you're good, you're okay,
so I may not have followed everything you have here, but
not worried about that.
And where do we write what?
Great question, that's a great question. I've only given you one document, so your observations would go on that one document.
The what?
The collaboration log.
Oh, okay.
And all you're gonna say is observe teacher on blah, blah, blah date. You don't even have to elaborate, because the elaboration's gonna be on the journal.
Okay.
So once
and
we
then of course
debrief,
I elaborate.
then
Okay.
Really we're supposed to.
When they go and observe a teacher, do we go with them?
I would love it if you can,
Okay,
but that's an ideal world, and that's not always possible.
so but we still use the same subcode and
Correct.
everything? Okay,
But if you can't, you can't.
okay.
But it's great if you can go and observe other teachers together, because it gives you a common conversation. But sub shortages, your schedule, their schedule, it's not a perfect thing. So if you can, great. If you can't, it's not the end of it. All right. So the question was, Kathy, when do you go? What period do you go? I want you to focus on one period, but you get to choose.
Okay.
So you have 5 choices, right? If you want to talk your mentee into, you're observing, you have common prep or different preps?
Different.
So you could observe during your prep if
Yeah.
you wanted to,
That's what I was thinking.
and then you don't even need a sub
Okay.
at all.
Right.
Until you and both of them went to go and observe somebody else, then you might need a sub for that.
We're supposed to do that?
So ideally, it would be great if you can go together, but it doesn't always work.
Okay.
So in a perfect world, yes, but in a practical world, if you can. But I do want you to coordinate who they're going to see, and once again, for your sake, it's going to be about their ILP. Okay, so it's strictly
So
on
can
their
we
ILP.
suggest?
You're gonna set that up, and you can talk to your admin, you can talk to your coaches,
Okay.
and find out, and you don't have to be on your campus. In fact, their observations should be some off campus, because they're getting a California credential, they're getting a well-rounded experience credential. So I don't want administrators saying you can only observe teachers on my own site. That's, and if you hear that, let me know, and I'll squash that.
Is that mostly for MIC or is that for PIP?
Same.
Okay.
But your goals could be different. And so now it could just be something that came up in conversation, and that teacher's saying, I don't really know how that looks. I know the perfect teacher to go look at. Or I'll find the perfect teacher to go look at, and we'll go see that in action. So another challenge I had for a teacher today was I wanted them to go see focus area, refocus area. And the time to teach system, especially at the middle schools, there's a little like, it sounds like timeout, but it's not, it's more formal than that, more structured. It is a reflection, and it kind of fits in with the restorative justice thoughts. The student sits down and really recounts, okay, why am I over here? This is what I did, how am I gonna fix it? This is what I'm gonna do. And then, so I wanted this teacher to go and see that in action, so that that teacher could implement it in their own classroom, okay? So it's a very focused observation. They may not even really see anybody in the refocus area, because it's being effective and deterrent for students not to be in the refocus area.
Right.
Right? So it's very focused. Now, do I have? I think you're going with the pick tonight, but just so that everybody hears it, and you want to pass along the news, if I have an elementary teacher that's struggling with the RECA, or a special ed teacher that's struggling with RECA, so that's the Reading Instruction California Assessment. And all elementary and ed specialists have to take that now to get a credential. But if they're teaching at junior high, they're never teaching reading. And all they have is theory from the class. I want my PIC teachers that are struggling with RECA, which are not your teachers, but I wanted everyone to hear it, to go look at first grade. So here's the 7th grade, I gotta go to first grade, because that's where they're teaching reading. And if they're doing reading intervention and got the kidney table out and the teachers, they're doing lips or Melinda Mubel or whatever, sit there with that teacher for half a day, pick that teacher's brain, and maybe even get to sit in the kidney table yourself and see if you can do it. Because that reading intervention is the test.
One at the middle school, and I think even the high schools, they have reading labs that are just specific to first ed students, and those two don't do the reading. Cause that's where my mentor had me was actually.
There you go.
Cause I teach special ed math, and I had to take a
Right.
reading test.
Did it work going to seeing those
Yes.
reading specialists on your site?
Then I
Great.
passed.
Do they still have those?
Yeah. Yeah. So
I
they
haven't
did
heard a
really
lot
well.
of talk about it. Is it getting warm here?
Yes, look.
We turned the heater on this morning and I turned it down.
It's fall.
All right, did everybody get or close to or understand what to do with their collaboration logs that were due on Friday? The collaboration logs that were due on Friday, did you all understand how to do them? Any
Yes.
questions about that?
I think it's out there.
I think I did.
You got a
I
stack
think I
that's
did.
next door. So.
I had a question on these parts down here, the picked training hours, picked hours minus PT. How do I find those out?
So the hours that you met should be identical for the PIC as well. And then
Okay.
if they came to any meetings,
Right.
you could add those together, which they came to one meeting
Yeah, she said that she would fill
for
it
2
out.
hours.
Maybe I should just ask her what she did when I got
Yeah,
here.
she was here for 2 hours. And then I'm not gonna have any more meetings for them on your side for the rest of the year. But if they go to other PD, they go to something on Saturday, they go to science fair, whatever, then there's a box of that where it says PD has nothing to do with PIC.
Outside of.
Right.
Okay.
So that's their hours.
Okay.
Yes.
So I should just ask them to keep track of that.
Yeah, or tell you so you can write it down.
Okay.
Okay, so on this,
Yes.
we put our inductees' information when they come here to these meetings too?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, we
So
didn't. do
their
that.
hours and your hours.
And mine.
Yes.
All of them.
Because- So there's 2 lines, one for MT and one for IC. You're the MT, you're the mentor teacher, and they're the induction candidate. the
Oh,
IC,
I see.
right? And here's the reason. For Mick, you will too, by the way, be offered 3 units from Fresno Pacific University. And you've got to demonstrate 45 hours of induction, which comes from your logs. So you're going to keep a copy of this. And you're going to let your induction candidate keep a copy of it, and then you're going to give me one.
Okay, so then if I faxed an incomplete document to Jessica, can I
Sure.
fix it and do it again?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And let her know that you're doing that because
All right, thank you very much.
yes. So we want to keep track of the hours for a couple of reasons. One is that you are going to be offered units. Everybody in the room gets, you probably are you maxed out. Most everybody needs units to
I'm maxed too.
get a little more money. Eric's all, I'm already tired, so we're
You're retired. I'm maxed.
I was
teachers
maxed
though
anyway,
are
so.
all, I don't know about your charter school, if you get units and you get more money.
Yeah.
It's not true at Sherman Thomas and ETAA, but it's different at any rate. Is that right?
That's
That's,
not there.
But they should get the units anyway.
Yeah,
Because
just
for sure,
if
just
they
in
go
case,
somewhere else
right.
down the road, they take those units.
It's typically a lot cheaper this way.
$300 for 3 units is really cheap. So you'll get offered those units, they'll get offered those units. The second reason is, she was asking about, gosh, how many hours do I have to do a week? We're looking at 4 hours a month. And I will tell you that it's ways down the road. I think we're 4 or 5 years out from CTC doing a site visit. And when they come, they're going to audit us. No, they're not going to audit this year, so we'll learn. But the year or 2 prior to them coming, they're going to open up all of our docs and they're going to look, are you really doing what you say you're doing? By looking at how many hours are on those lab logs. And we'll have to show that yes, especially the mix side. On the PIC side, the CTC could ask, you have a lot of PIPs and STIPs in your district. Are you following CTC's direction that they have to have a mentor and need an hour a week? Yes, and there's the truth. The third thing for Madera Unified, not so much for our county partners, is that our stipends for you are paid with federal Title I grants. And they audit us and look for, and I had one, for instance, that was, we audited one time and I had a teacher missing March and April, right? Or something like that, February, March. So the audit was in July. And I tried to find that teacher and I couldn't find him. So I did find an earlier log and played fast and loose with the photocopy machine to make sure that
I heard something.
Oh, it's on the recorder too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna edit that one out. But I didn't feel like I was violating the spirit of the law because I knew that she had done the time. I think that she actually turned in her logs without signatures.
Oh.
And that was all that was missing, but I couldn't find her to get it. So we do get audited from the federal government, we get audited from CTC. It is your pay stub, essentially your timesheet, so Madera Unified can pay you, and the hours that are needed for those units in the spring. So there's a lot of reasons why we collect these collaboration loans. Good question.
Here, Steve, it says total this month, MIG hours, and then on the other side, it says total this month outside of MIG PD hours. What's that?
So did you go to any PD that had nothing to do with me? Did you go to a SATI seminar? Did you go to an after-school workshop?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so
That's
like
it.
our SAT meeting would be outside.
Let's get a little more formal than that. You can, like, you went to
Like a PD.
county office at Ed on Saturday and got a training, which you guys have to do all the time now.
Right.
Do that? Right?
Right.
So I did
What about like Abbott?
If you went to Avid training,
I did.
yes. So you can throw that on there as other outside. But inside, I want you to add up the 4 hours plus tonight, for instance, in the total MIC hours box.
So
And
our
then-
hours wouldn't necessarily match up.
Correct.
We have more training hours.
Correct.
For this
And then we have the hours when we were here last time.
Correct.
A couple weeks ago, right?
Correct.
In addition to that.
So when we're doing like PD that's geared towards school, for instance, what did we just do? I don't know. We had to do like the suicide prevention and all of that. PD, would that count for outside? Okay.
Because sometimes those units that Pacific wants, they'll accept and blend them a little bit together.
Okay.
Kind of, yeah. Because they want those 45 hours. You'll get those though. You'll have plenty. You'll get your 45 hours in, I promise. Great questions. You're finding that the classroom is easy to navigate? Everybody's in it? No problems there? You have a question?
Just one more thing about them doing their observations. Do they go for a whole day to observe or just a half day?
Half day.
A half day, okay.
And they probably could see 2 teachers in a half a day. Yeah. So we want them to see, that's a great question. The answer is, I want them to see a complete lesson. The elementary level, that's probably 90 minutes. In secondary, it's probably before the bell rings till after the bell rings. So that they're seeing how the kids line up, how they get into class, how what procedures are in place, all of that you can see until they exit. And then you may not have time to talk to them. But, one of the things I want you to do after you do your observation is find a way to give them some immediate feedback, and then next week when you meet, give them detailed feedback. But don't just tell them good job and thumbs up.
Oh, I mean when they go to observe another teacher.
So yeah, so hopefully they get 2 done in 1 half day. Yes.
Okay, so when they take a half a day for a sub and they're going to go observe 2 teachers on campus or not, wherever, where do they write in their form?
Great question. I've only given them one document to reflect and write on, and that would be the
It's in the journal.
journal.
Okay.
So, in that case, that's the evidence
For that month.
For that month,
Oh, okay.
or at least two of them, or whatever you wanna write in there. And because the focus of their observation is absolutely closely aligned to their ILP, it all adds up. We have tried really, really hard not to have multiple documents going this way and that way.
Okay, good.
So it's in the journal, or it's in the log, and that's it. Now, the journals can be quite extensive, as you saw, you were reading November, somebody over here was like, oh my gosh, it's November. And it can be pretty extensive, but it's one place at a time, one source. So there's not, part of it's an organizational thing, but part of it just made sense.
So this is the sample journal, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Mine's not like that.
All right.
It will be when you graduate your Nick.
Yeah, we're just starting. But is this is per month, right?
Correct.
All right.
There's, in your side of things, there's six journals that they're doing. You're not doing the journals, they are, but they have 6 journals. And yours
These
has
are the ones they're doing.
correct,
And then I write on this one.
correct. And you're writing bullet points, and they're writing complete sentences.
Okay.
One other question I have, this is completely aside. In your Google Classroom, are you going to put the reflected questions for this month and
By Friday,
by Friday?
because I have some editing to do, because they're now 3 years old and they're getting stale. And we got some feedback at our last meeting with my veteran mentors on what they wanted in there and added. So I'm going to edit that. That's my job on my to-do list for tomorrow and Thursday, but make sure they're in the classroom by Friday. Along with new collaboration logs for the month is the journal. And they also have on the mix side pathways and outcomes as an assignment, so that also will be placed in there.
And then, I think it got fixed. I saw you sent that email. When I originally tried to get the log, it was a Word doc.
Yeah.
Is that what you fixed? Was that the
So,
email that
yes,
came back? Okay.
that was like, so here's what happened. Google changed a little bit. And one of the things is when you
Yes,
convert a
it
Word
did.
doc into Google Docs, that's only step 2 of 3. And
Okay.
it didn't used to be a 3-step process, it used to be a 2-step process. Google to, a Google Word to Google. You've got to do it twice now instead of once.
Because I thought then I had fixed it, and then my candidate was like, wait, are you typing right now? Because I don't see anything. And then that's when we realized, oh wait, now I need to reopen it as a, okay. So that makes sense.
And
So
then I
in the
had-
future, it'll just be,
And
it'll be
then
good to go.
on the mentor side, and I was sending out emails and trying to fix things, sweat's pouring down off my face, I'm panicking, because I couldn't figure out, there was a button that got pushed that said, don't allow copies to be made or this to be printed. And I didn't even know that button existed. So I actually have joined the classroom with my own personal Gmail to see what it looks like. And it generates email and this, and I look at it, I'm like, oh dang, I can't do anything with this. I could feel I could almost hear you guys yelling at me. Actually what happened is I got like 15 emails at once. I kid you not. Okay, I'm not even responding because I know I have a problem. So I went back and I created it so that everybody had access, but then I said, don't type on this one, make a copy of it, because if you type on this one, everyone's gonna see it, right? And I'm panicked, I'm worried that somebody's gonna miss that direction, and then I'm still in the background in my office, poking, prodding, and finally I found the button that said, allow for printing.
I just figured I was doing something wrong.
No.
I'm like, what am I doing?
But I did learn a couple of years ago that when you share a document, you can get the shareable link. And in that long string of stuff, there's a 4-letter edit. And if you delete edit and put the word copy instead, and then you highlight the whole thing and make it a link, when I share it with you as an email, it doesn't even show you the document. All it says is the name of the document and make a copy. And then you have no choice.
You have no choice but to
I wonder how that works.
Right? Yeah, it's really cool. I'm not playing on YouTube. This is uploading my classroom management class here, so.
Your projector's straight up blue, you're good.
I
We can't see it.
Alright, so, oh, it went blue, so I need to do this. I don't know why this came up, but okay. So if I push share, and I get a share of a link, and then I copy the link, and I go to here, you see this word edit? Then you highlight it, and you link it. See the link down here? This has nothing to do with observation.
Just go into all these documents.
Good useful information.
My son is ahead of things. Look at this. Christmas wish list already.
Thinking ahead.
Maybe he's thinking you'll get it on sale so he'll get more.
You guys want to learn how to mend a fly rod? There it is. So now, if I click this, you see what it says? I can only make a copy.
So are you doing that with the next collaborative log?
No.
No, okay.
But if you ask me to send you a document, that's probably how I would send it to you.
Okay.
But it was just a trick in case you wanted to send out something. I am going to,
You could make it view only too.
you can, but I found if you don't, and that's when you click file, make a copy. So that's what happens when I put it in the classroom. It's in view only, and you have to click file, make a copy, and make your own
And then
copy.
everyone always asks you, can you make this so I can edit it?
Uh-huh.
No,
Or in
please make a
Google
copy.
Classroom, you can also do it so that it makes copies for each individual person.
If you do it as an assignment.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not assigning you that, because then everybody would get confused. Am I supposed to return this to you in Google Classroom?
Got it.
No.
I guess no matter what you do.
I want this to go to Jessica.
I have one more question about
Yes.
hours. We have a week off in October.
Yay!
Yeah.
Can I join you?
So do I need to try to get that hour that we're gonna miss in? Okay. Because we have this extra vacation that's, okay.
Nice.
So I was just sitting there thinking how.
Do you have 2 weeks at Christmas instead of 3?
2.
Then you'll make up that week,
Okay,
because everyone else has 3.
okay, that works.
And we, our December, January journal and log are combined because of that.
Okay,
So, and we have Thanksgiving week where
Right.
it's another one we're gonna miss, so.
okay, thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Observations. In your table groups, I want you to answer this question. What are the skills and attitudes an effective mentor teacher might bring to the observation discussion to facilitate continuous learning by the induction candidate, or in this case, the beginning teacher? I'm going to chase you to borrow some things. Since you guys are new, I've done this training 4 times. Talk about that in your table groups.
Well, talk about, well, first I listen. I think listening is really really important.
Maybe
I
you
really
can answer
wish
some
that
of
I
that, I have given that
had a
thought.
mentor when I
Like
first
sometimes even
started
for me,
teaching.
I'll be like,
I
oh,
think
but this is
that
how
would
you
have
do
been
it.
Did you
so
see
much
something, is there something that might work
easier
in
and
the
more
classroom?
helpful for me.
Something that you use for
And then if she's sharing about something, I will just kind of tell her what I did in that, situation. And for example, one of her goals is a and I just created a new document with our action research that we did last year, right? And I think
But also, I
she's
think
so excited.
Like what you
for
said,
me,
like,
Yes,
the
maybe
state
just
come
help
back
him.
and see like
One of my
when that
teachers
situation.
is for staying in the classroom with us well. He'd never been in the classroom as a teacher before.
Oh.
He came in completely.
Yes.
And
Mine is
I
the same way.
observed him as the worst class and one of the media such that the experience is most difficult class for lesson.
Yeah, and try to find positives.
I just sat there and watched him do the lab activity, and I just kind of compared what he did to the things other teachers do, like myself too, and just kind of watched them making it around with the students, the way he kept other students engaged while he was doing the demonstration.
someone else telling you.
How his,
When I think change
just how
should be
his classroom set up,
Okay,
he
so
did
then,
him
and that's
that
something
hindered
next
him.
time, when, like,
Yeah.
how you in there and take like behavior.
Then I have another teacher, she's on,
And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is my sister, like if you just stand up and start like this.
so this was
And it's hard
her,
because most of them I teach freshmen,
have a
so you can just like.
this was his, like, all these little check marks on there, these are things I noticed that we should probably not.
Exactly. Yeah, like
That
you need to be able to read the
all
kids,
of
what
his
they,
time.
and that might think like you're not learning. How do you check for
And
anything?
so I thought, told him,
And what's your
first step later, I thought every answer the student wrote down deserved recognition. Because they worked really hard on this, so I should be example. And for my first 2 years, I had no social life. I was single. He's married, got 2 kids. So we talked about during their war months, perhaps, which will allow you to sort of learn.
I never took it.
Talk about stuff like that. Yeah, it was interesting. This classroom,
And I tried
the
to.
tables are not bolted before. You can change the zoning of what you're doing. So,
To me, I would have been
if you want, I can come and help you.
Yeah, you can move them, yeah.
We talked about just a lot of stuff like that. My intern on the other hand, she has
But if you would have told them, they would have.
anatomy physiology class.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like as a parent, you let your kids stray.
And
All right, what did we come up with?
college prep, and I had to
Ask reflective questions.
Very good.
Look for the positives.
Not be judgmental.
Ah. Okay, that's the hard one.
Yeah.
Because we want teachers to do it the way we do. And I remember when I was learning to drive, and my dad said, "Go to X place." Okay. And I went. And I said, "How'd I do, Dad?" He said, "Well, that's not the way I would have gone, but you got us here and everything's good." There was some kind of, I felt that, because he's my dad, you know, a little bit of judgment there. But are there two ways to get to St. Martin? Is one better than another, or you both got to the same result, right? That's really hard. To see a teacher use different strategies or different techniques, or even sometimes to try something that works for you that doesn't work for them. Yeah, so that one's a really good. Good. What else?
Listening.
I couldn't hear you.
Willing to really listen. Let them vent when they need to vent.
We have a tendency to, in our mind, answer the question before it's even finished being asked, right? So we're not always present for the question. That's good.
What about effective feedback?
Constructive feedback.
Objective.
Okay. One of the things that we want to do is we want to be able to, and this is where these reflective questions really come into play, is that art, it's almost like cognitive coaching or even adult learning theory that talks about letting them kind of arrive at the conclusion, but you're leading them there through the questions that you're asking, or you're looking at data. So they said, oh, the lesson went great. Great, well, let's look at your quiz scores, because you had a quiz during that period. How did they come out? And they're like abysmal. Well, why are you said the lesson went great, but the scores don't align. What happened? And then hopefully they begin to do some reflecting about their practice versus that lesson sucked. I'm just giving you constructive feedback. Let me tell you something else that we learned a couple of years ago. What I found is that my mentors are incredibly kind and gentle and loving. That's why you're kind of doing this, other than maybe your administrator said, I got to have somebody in your it, and so you were voluntold. I don't know, that may be your case, you were voluntold. But let's face it, you're not getting a lot of money, and then as we start cracking the books on how many hours you're putting into this, divided by the little stipend that you're getting, you're realizing that you're getting less than minimum wage. Come on, man. It's
well,
not the
thanks
money.
for figuring that out. Never mind.
So, as people that are gentle, we probably do this even with our own spouses. My wife is famous for asking me a question when she really is trying to tell me, you need to do this. Right? Are you going to keep those cupcakes in your car or in your classroom before you deliver them? She's trying very hard not to tell me what to do. Sometimes I'm a knucklehead, and I need my wife to say, make sure you put those in the classroom with the air conditioning before it, because they're going to melt in the car. And I'm learning, it's taken me a couple of years, my wife is giving me direction, but she's so kind-hearted and polite about it that she does it in the form of a question. Well, honestly, especially when we were first married, my initial reaction is, no. Do you want to chop some avocados for dinner tonight? No. It took a while for me to figure that one out. True story. Do you want to chop some avocados for dinner tonight? No.
Yes, you do.
What I wish you would have said is, would you please chop some avocados tonight for dinner? Sure. Do I want to? No. But I'll do it because I love you and I'll do whatever it takes. All right, we have a tendency to tell, if you'll notice, you might even do it with your students, that you are telling your students to do something in the form of a suggestion. For instance, if a student that's not with it and you said to the student, you may want to open your book to page 432 and get out your pencil. The student's thinking, and I may not.
Right.
Right?
I just had that today.
Yeah.
Instead of, you will open your book to page 472 and get out your pencil and do it now. Right? There's a difference. But we're kind people. That's our kind of our genre of teachers. It's hard to find a mean teacher. I mean, I can find some, but it's not as hard. Okay? You're nice people, and when you are meeting with your people, most of the time you're using reflective questions and you're offering suggestions and you're saying things like, I tried, or this is something that I did that you might want to try. The tendency, though, is for everybody to have a sense of pride and throw up a little defensive wall and say, yeah, but. That really doesn't apply. Yeah, but. And we rationalize why the suggestion is not applicable in this situation. And we all do it, and it's all about protecting our inner self, our sense of pride. And I frankly will tell you that the worse somebody's confidence sinks or their self-image sinks, the more of a wall that comes up. The most powerful people I've ever met are often the most humble and real and have no problem laying down all their faults. Yeah, you know, I messed that up, or I know, for instance, my skill set is not organization, and that's down the list for me. I have to work hard at being organized, okay? And I'll readily admit that. But I will tell you, Mr. Albertson, I'm caught up in all my email. He doesn't even watch these. I've been caught up for a whole 2 weeks. Woo! But confident people have a tendency to be transparent people. Less confident people have a tendency to put a wall up they think is protecting them, but the truth is everyone else can see it, right? Sometimes, occasionally, even though we are working on reflective questions and cognitive coaching skills, sometimes you need to tell your candidate, you must. One of them is, put grades in the grade book every week. You must contact the parent when there's an issue in the classroom before you go to the administrator. You must complete this IEP by the date and make sure that it's affirmed. Is that what it's called? Right? You can't mess around with this. This is a legal document. This is a 504. It's legal. You've got to make sure that it is perfect. And it can't be, well, you might want to make sure that you reread this and make sure there's no mistakes in there and you're trying to be kind. Some things are black and white. And so you have to tell them exactly how it's going to be. But that's hopefully the rarer side of it. Most of the time you are offering suggestions and counseling and saying, well, this might work or that might work, or I know my colleague tried this, it didn't work for me, but it might work for you, or we can go watch them do it, or something of that nature. Most of the time that's how you're working it, but sometimes you got to be deliberate. Sometimes you got to say, I need to chop them off cuts. All right. Before you do your observation, I want you to have a meeting. In your table groups, talk about some of the things that you should think about talking about before you do your observation. So, and you can even write on the back of your notes or agenda some things that you want to talk about before you have an observation.
Maybe there's something that says, ask her about her goals. What they want you to look for. Yeah.
What do you want to
maybe if there's something she wants to notice. There's something that she sees.
Is there something specific you want to have, they want you to walk for?
So you guys can talk about like a suggestion and see like how they played it out. I'd say even, especially if you're you're not gonna talk to the kids. I sometimes have had like those extra observations in the district, and they'll go around
struggles, yeah.
like for
already
You know
in
what I mean, so
class.
it's like your wallpaper, you're not.
Yeah.
That's good. Of course, what period
Is one
she
thing.
wants me to observe. If
Yeah.
maybe she doesn't, even though my type is good, maybe she doesn't want me to sit there.
Can I do this?
Well, you're supposed to observe the same class
You know,
all through the year.
Oh, really, the same one?
you can look it up, like,
It's kind of like.
Oh, so it has to be close. Oh, really?
exactly.
Okay. True. Okay.
So you know.
Thanks for telling me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I would have known that before.
You know all the students, you don't have to see them.
It's typically one-on-one.
So you know who,
You choose or maybe
so you're gonna, you gotta go who you want to watch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know that it's hard because
Oh, it's right here.
he also has a man.
Focus.
Well, the focus of the observation could be
Oh, did you make like a station or like how it's
flow around, how they move around.
Right.
That's what they want you to do.
Well, what's really funny is, well, so, I observed.
I don't know what
Yes.
their ILP goals
I
are.
had to cover his class twice, because he needed to do it with school, and there's like a big pizza, like review stuff. So I was like, oh yeah, I can watch the class. So, I put on both sides of the table. So my class on the 17th is middle school, so I don't know.
What's that?
His feet.
Oh,
Why is it?
right.
Yeah.
So that's a good idea, yeah, to be introduced or not.
It doesn't
Doesn't matter.
But I know most of them anyway. And so they're like, yeah. And so I just kind of sat back and just.
Say seating chair.
Yeah.
Forcing outcomes aren't due.
I'm not sure if that means that they want you to know which students they was
Walking around or something.
or had his head down.
It is not your student.
The survey
Because you have to,
and
the goal for, like I mentioned, code
we
for
did.
the parents, so that they can implement
That's one of the things I noticed about working line is the phone
It's all very
Ours
careful.
is the process.
I just finally had, I was very mean and lackadaisical for some time. I allowed them as long as they were. And then it just became more intrusive. And so I said, you know what, put them away. Put them away. I'm a mean teacher.
Yeah. And then his sister.
All right, what'd you guys come up with?
We said that, to just go over the general lesson and focus, kind of see what we're gonna see.
All right, this is the key, is what are you gonna focus on?
And another thing that we kind of, that piggybacks on that is there anything that the IC wants us to look for? Like, specific issues that they could see perhaps, or anything that they want us to focus on as well.
Good. And in the mixed side of things, even if they're trying to implement something that's not working, or how does this look with my focus students as I'm trying, right? All that, so it has to be tied to, but yeah, you have a tight focus.
Okay.
So even though the bookcase isn't the way you would like it, or, right, the carpet situation isn't working really well, here's what I know about new teachers. If we tell them 7 things to work on, nothing gets worked on.
Right.
So we're gonna focus on one thing at a time. And hopefully they've identified that in the ILP, and you can do that. Good. What else? So I heard you say you wanted a lesson plan?
No.
You didn't say that?
Do I want one?
You do.
I do, yes. I do want a lesson plan.
Good, what else?
We also talked about kind of like what your role is, you know, that you're just gonna be sitting there watching, they don't necessarily need to acknowledge you or that sort of thing.
So, and I will tell you that my role's a little different, but I find it extremely difficult to sit and be quiet in a classroom. I want to interact with the kids and have fun, and so yeah, but I try really hard to, I put a tie on to pretend like, you know, okay, you're like an administrator, just sit there and be quiet. I'm dying to get involved. But you're right. What is my role? Do you want me to be introduced? Do you want me to just walk in quietly in? And it tends to be at every grade level, who's that? And what I get is, oh, is this our sub? So that is important. Are you going to be introduced? And even, where do you want me to sit? So you should know before you even get there, where do you want me to sit? Good. What else?
What goal you're focusing on?
Yes. Focus on that ILP or the goal. Good. So you've already done that when I asked you, remember, just get in there real quick and look at everybody and get out in 20 minutes. That was an overall where you could go, okay, I see where we're at, kind of, I have an understanding. And now actually you have a baseline so that when we think about this in April, you can remember back to that first observation and go, golly, this teacher's really making a lot of gain. And you can give them evidence because you're observant. But now you're right, we are specifically focused on a very small goal. Good, what else?
If they have any struggles or any classroom management questions that they would like you to observe.
And that would go along with this, concerns. And yeah, you know what, it's okay to say that this is my primary focus. I also have a secondary focus because this question came up. Yes.
And then we also said, like you were giving the example of, you know, this kid got up 25 times.
Right.
Well, maybe there's something going on with that child where they need to have that, so there's already prearranged.
So you should know that before time.
Yes.
Good. Having said that, you should have a seating chart. Whoops. Why am I saying chart? Very good. So you need a seating chart.
Is that so we know what who their three
And
people
who
are?
the three focus students are.
Do they have to be, the 3 focus students have to be in that class? Cause like if we're observing 6th period and there's one in like 1st period, does that matter? Or do they need to pick 3 in the class you're gonna observe?
So that's my fault. I probably should have said, when you pick your 3 focus students, make sure they're in the same class.
So she can change
So it
her.
is what it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You can change it.
I don't think,
Yeah, mine are gonna be different ages too, I think. So,
It's okay.
and I don't have focus students
No,
yet.
no. You, they do on their addendum G.
Right, but that's
They happen to be the class
their
leader, too.
focus, not necessarily from my focus.
You're just trying to find out if they're surviving.
Yes.
So,
One is one I'm iffy.
if this used to be an alt ed setting, can you see the holes in the acoustic tiles? Do you have any idea what they might have, like this one right here? Pencils, which they had a problem here. So that might be something that you would notice.
Right. And Steve, you said something about like an elementary 90-minute block. Is that how long I should be observing my?
Lesson.
Okay.
So in your case, you could get a coach to cover your class, or you can get a sub.
Okay.
If the coach will come for 90 minutes and take over your class, then you can go and observe and come back, great.
Okay.
But that's not always practical either. And at this site, that's probably okay, but not every site's okay with that.
Yeah.
So you have to be case by case.
Okay.
Along with that, for teachers that are observing non-elementary classes, should we know their cycle of inquiry? You know, what's come before this lesson, what's coming after this lesson?
That should be part of your conversations as you're talking about the just-in-time stuff anyway. You should have a pretty good idea by now where they're at in their teaching and kind of have
Not
an
necessarily
understanding.
in their curriculum.
So you should start talking about that. So we're teaching how you're doing,
Thanks, okay.
right? Do you have any problems writing lesson plans? Are you learning how to do are your objectives on the board? Those are kind of ways that you could help. I have to write objectives? What is that? Oh, well, let me talk to you about that because your administrator is going to come in and expect this to be plastered all over the place. Right?
Kids won't learn if it's not. Can it be, could we do it at the same time as a formal observation with the principal?
No,
Okay,
no.
okay.
That's a great question. I don't want you to go in with admin because your teacher's going to be really nervous.
Okay.
And let's be honest, the formal observation is a tap dance. You remember that musical Chicago, right? They do the tap dance, right? You can help that teacher prepare for the formal observation. Advise them, for instance, don't try any new strategies. It's only strategies that you've already mastered with your kids. And tell your kids to raise their right hand if they know the answer and the left hand if they don't. They're already nervous. You want to see authentic teaching. Our evaluation systems are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. That's actually why there's an emphasis on all the informals with the right the comments that go with them. It's not that the administrator is trying to catch you, but they're trying to see authentic. And that formal observation, it ought to be the best lesson of the year. Well, you're trying to help the teacher who's struggling or learning, and they're going to be putting on their best tap dance shoes and doing everything. So no.
Okay.
Plus, they're already nervous enough, and you're going to make them nervous. You don't think of that. You're going to make them nervous. They want to perform for you, and it's bad enough that admin's in there already. They're going to forget it. Good. All right. When you are in there, I've given you some options, and you can modify this. They were talking about at this table taking which one was it? One of these seating chart ones, and instead of doing seating charts, doing stations, and watching how the teacher does stations, especially at the elementary level. These are yours to use or not use as you see fit. I will tell you that this one is pretty good, in that you just the chunking. You can do it one of two ways. Every 5 minutes, you just writing down what's happening in the classroom. Another way to chunk is to say, teacher said, student said, or student did. Right? That's another way. Okay? I love the teacher movement one, particularly when we're talking about classroom management. And actually, if you look at the standards, the first one says engaging and supporting all students in learning, and we're talking about equity all of the time. And you'll watch, and even I do it. I'm right-handed, but I have a tendency to move to my left. In a classroom, even that is set up well, that has an interior loop that we can walk, we have a tendency to stay up in the front and walk the first couple of rows. And you can show that. And then you can ask the question, well, is this equitable to all of the students in the classroom? Do we actually walk and teach all the way to the back? And this is a great habit to help your new teacher get into. It's just walking the room. Even as adults, as I'm walking the room, does it feel different? Does it feel like now that if I stand at this table, you're on blast all of a sudden? The kids feel the same, and it's a great classroom management tool to work the room and be in close proximity. So that's a great one as well. But I will tell you, mine is old school. I take a legal pad and a pen, and I just write. What am I seeing? And as it pertains to that goal, that's what I would focus on. Okay. All right. roll the minute. How many of you have been observed? Sometimes, right? Did you like it or not like it?
It depends who's observing you.
Okay,
You're talking about the administrator?
all right. So if the vice principal comes in, that's okay, but the principal comes in and makes you feel weird? Or principals are okay, but superintendent comes in and makes you feel weird? Or what do you mean by that?
Well, I'm more comfortable if it's like others, sometimes some of my colleagues,
Peers?
peers, yes.
Okay. But when you're being evaluated, it feels different. Okay. What did you like about being observed?
Well, I was just going to say, for me, it was exactly the opposite. I didn't like being observed by my peers. I didn't care about admin.
Well,
Yeah.
But what did you like about it when admin came in and observed you?
They were very quiet. They were non-obtrusive. They stayed in the back of the classroom. If we were doing a lab, they would walk around and ask the kids what we were doing, what was the learning objective today, how was this getting into it. They became part of the classroom most of the time.
Were you at, you were still at Madero when there was one school and two campuses, right?
Yes.
And Kathy, did
No,
you
no,
too?
I was at Madero South when there was one school, two
One
campuses.
school though, right?
Yeah, I was
And-
the
and
teacher
Kathy, you
chosen
too?
to go. I'm sorry?
Kathy, you too?
No, I've been at Madera South from the beginning.
Was there the one school, two campuses?
Yeah.
And Mr. Pisk?
Mr. Pisk was over at MHS.
But he was over both schools?
Yes.
Yeah, but he came. Yeah, I
you
remember
observe
seeing him a couple times.
Were you there after they hired Mike Labarge?
Oh yeah,
Observed you like this?
yeah. I was there. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
When he looks.
I recognize that.
Yeah.
And he was 6'5", 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Your sphincter went like this.
He subbed for us, and he still does that. And he's not your evaluator. You still feel so nervous, like.
You know what's interesting? Close the door. He's the nicest man you've ever met.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
But when he comes in the classroom, and he observes so much when he's subbing. And
And
he's subbed on our
Albertson was like
campus a
that too,
lot.
actually. He was kind of intimidating when he would come in, but close the door, Kent's one of the nicest people. What did you not like about being observed?
Just get nervous. You couldn't be
Okay, so
yourself.
you're nervous. Your people will be too. But the more they get to know you, the less nervous they're going to be. But they're going to be nervous, and I didn't understand that because I don't think of myself as the intimidator, right? But I found that my title is, and I didn't understand that. It took me a couple of years to really figure that one out. But yes, you're going to scare them in just walking in because they're only trying to please you. Good. What else? Not like about being observed.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, I didn't like when they didn't know what was going on in the class.
Yeah.
For example, a student having his head down,
Mhm.
you know, and you can't always go up to them and be like, this is why his head's down, you know, because they're observing you. So I would feel frustrated that I couldn't justify why I was doing something that may seem, you know, improper.
So I need to take your administrators out and say just the facts. Don't put any opinion into it. But they write student was off task and not doing anything. Yeah, I feel you. Good. What else?
You don't know how the kids are gonna respond. I'm nervous about that.
Right? Especially when it's a surprise visit. For whatever reason, no one explained this to me, but I was teaching Casey English at the high school, and Jim Dice, I love that man. If you ever got a chance to meet him, great vice principal. Lived in the Central Unified District and worked here. But he liked what I was doing, and he kept inviting outsiders from the district into my classroom. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I was so naive. I didn't know what was going on. And one day I look up and I'm talking to this man, and it turns out that he's the superintendent of LA County Office of Ed.
Huh?
In my classroom. I didn't even know I was supposed to be scared. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, this is what we're doing. This is how we do it, right? Yeah, it's kind of weird though when you get surprised. And it's movie day. No movie days. How about this one? The administrator comes in and they do this the whole time. How does that make you feel?
Like you're invisible.
or they leave the radio on, it squawks, or they have to take a phone call and they're rushing out, and they're talking as you're going out. Alright, so I'm gonna ask y'all to put your phones, if you can discipline yourself, maybe put it in your desk and leave it in your drawer in your schoolroom, but I know you have little ones, or you have, you gotta be, I feel that way. I have 2 parents that are close to 80, and I gotta be close to a phone. I got kids all over the place, I gotta be close to a phone. But I put it on silent, right? And I happen to have a watch now that will vibrate. I can even put that on silent, but I have it vibrate. So I know, I got something important. Tyler's not playing this, so nothing important. But sure enough, there was a text message on there, and I could deal with that real quick, or at least know when I step out, right? If you're on your phones, now, I will tell my teachers ahead of time, because I'm going to observe all of them as much as I can. Jessica and I are talking, the list is close to 200. And I'm going to try to do all of them. I'm only in somebody's class for 20 minutes. But I found, as I mentioned, I'm not the best organized person in the world. I used to take a legal pad in there and just write, and then I would say, well, as soon as I get back to the office, I will email my teachers. And then there would be a fire, and then there would be someone complaining about, or had a problem with, or whatever. And it would get put off for a day, or 2, or 4, and then it's so far down, it didn't happen. So I've gotten into the habit now of emailing the teacher while I'm finishing up the observation, so that before I leave, I'm giving them some feedback. And you can tell them this, I'm not there to evaluate, it's not my job, nor really to find things that are wrong. I'm there for 20 minutes, I'm going to throw a judgment out there. I don't really even give advice on what I try to do is reflect on what I see that are positive as it relates to the CSTPs. So I might say, I saw some great EL strategies today, or I saw some awesome procedures, or your classroom environment is off the charts, or stuff like that. I'm just looking for things that are positive and relate, and I try to relate it back to the standards. I'm not there to critique. They have a coach, they have you, they have administration. Too many cooks in the kitchen. I'm going to tell them something in 20 minutes. How arrogant of me to think that I can fix all the rules. Every now and again, I'll get one and I'll go, oh no. And I will tell you that 20 minutes becomes an hour. Right. And I'll sit there a lot longer. And then I'll wait for that recess or some kind of transition and say, I'm noticing this. How are you doing? Oh yeah, I'm really struggling with that. And I can say, I can fix that for you if you want. I have options. I have some things for you. That doesn't happen a lot. Most of the time the teachers are pretty good. They have the same rough edges that we all have, but very rarely does it, I get to red flag, oh my gosh, this person's not going to make it next year. They'll be fine. And I try to help them. All right. Let me, 6 o'clock, let me work through this. When you're having that post-conversation discussion, I want you to bring data as much as possible as it relates to their ILP. So you have some tools, or you have a notepad, or if you want to bring in a laptop and type, but bring data. And just like we started before, you're working really hard at giving facts, not opinion. So you got to think, what's the difference? How do I reflect what's going on? And I will tell you that if your teacher's brave enough, the best feedback is to film it. But not everybody likes to be filmed. If you do film it, please do not publish it. Do not put it on the web. Just share it with them. It absolutely can't go to their evaluator. It can't be posted because you haven't got all the internet right. You've got kids in their pictures, but you can look at it from just the 2 of you, and it's a great tool. But it takes a lot of guts, really, for a teacher to look at themselves teaching. And they're actually kind of used to it now, though, because their TPAs are requiring a video segment. And so does even some of the RICAs. An option for RICA is a video of you teaching versus just answering all the questions. So they're actually more open to videoing themselves teaching than they have ever been before. So that's an option. What you're trying to be is a mirror and just reflect back what is actually happening in the classroom. And induction candidates will give a thorough summary of their reflective conversations centered on the observation in the journal.
So everything we write, all our notes and diagrams and all that we give that to them,
You
we're
share
trying
it
to
with them,
prepare it.
but they don't have to upload all that.
We just write that that the observation happened.
Correct. Trying to make it easy for you.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you have an observation template that you want us to use, or?
No.
Okay.
So that's why I give you some tools, or the old school method of just going in there with the legal pad. But no, there is not a template. And because, as we're seeing, your situation is so different from everybody else's, like, I felt that I could make a generic one, but it doesn't. But generic doesn't usually work. You need a specific one. All right. What I want you to do now is find a blank piece of paper, blank space, on or no paper, maybe on the back of your master teacher observation list, or maybe on the back of one of the tools that I gave you. And we're going to watch the classroom for a few minutes and then compare and contrast our notes.
That says through, Steve, instead of thorough.
Thorough? Did I make a typo there?
It says through. The word's typed correctly, but it's the wrong word. Jesse the one me tell you that was bugging.
I did not. You said it was bugging you.
I said it's okay, I'm in a meeting.
Rude. I could care less.
Hi, I'm in a meeting. Is everything
Yeah, that
okay?
mistake's been there for a couple of years too. How's that? Does that make it feel better?
Oh, there you go. No.
Oh, at your house?
He was joking.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you, bye-bye.
I'll wait till we're off with the cake and the beautiful cake. I say I'm excited.
Yeah.
Just don't do it in front of this camera.
Oh, that's a good point too. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll see him again soon.
I just might have to see some monitoring images.
And she's a teacher, so she's got a lot.
Yeah.
So much money. Just add to the student loan debt. No big deal.
All right.
That's on video.
I didn't say turn off.
Actually, it cut out before you.
Aww.
You're having a problem with your hookup. No signal.
All right. This is a 10th grade English literature class. In this lesson, students learn how and why to incorporate evidence from a text into their writing. Students read both the model and the non-model paragraphs and use a graphic organizer as a tool for organizing their thoughts and evidence before writing their own paragraphs. So in this scenario, remember we talked about in this one, I want you to look at her two things. I want you to see how she is supporting engagement of students and what kind of procedures that she has. So let's imagine that those were her two goals, that she was working on raising the engagement of her students, and she was also working on a classroom management, particularly on her procedures. Let's just pretend that that's her focus. And I'll try this again. I don't understand why you don't like me. Come on now.
The name of the lesson I went by spider diagramming with Shakespeare, and the goal was really to get students to see an organizational tool to develop a paragraph that had topic sentences, commentary, and quotes all together. And their end result would be a fully developed paragraph. I was trying to address California Content Standards 2.2 and 2.2b, which is using writing evidence such as quotes in a student's essay.
Left the rabbit ears in just the
Some
right.
characteristics from the play, Taming of the Shrew, and list as many characteristics and traits as possible. These are things we talked about last week when you brought your character box. So think of things that match the character and their traits. I'll come around and stamp your journals. You'll probably have about 2 more minutes.
There you go. Perfect.
30 seconds, wrap up your journals. What was the first person you thought of? Shauna. Kate. What do we know about Kate?
She's strong-headed. She kind of has a will of her own. Kind of bad-tempered.
Anyone else we thought of? Gwen. Bianca. What do we know about Bianca?
She's kind of accidental.
Sweet and pretty?
Yeah.
Who are some other main characters?
Petruchio.
Okay. What do we know about Petruchio?
That he's really sly and greedy.
Sly. Money hungry, and he's the only one that claims he can tame a shrew. Last week on Wednesday, what did we do?
We brought a box in with items in it representing the characters.
And his box came with what? A separate set of quotes to type. So today we're going to working on characters and adding quotes to our paragraph.
I saw that.
The turtle is fascinated with different kinds of vegetables, plants, and seeds. This represents a continuous cycle of adjusting to become comfortable. When she is through this phase, she gradually becomes more comfortable with her surroundings. Where would be a great place to add something to this paragraph?
After the first sentence, you can have a quote showing that she's shy and reserved.
So right here? Okay, that would be a great way to add dimension to the paragraph. What I'm going to do now is show you a good paragraph. At first, Esperanza was quiet and dull. She appeared to be depressed, and at one point, she tried to kill herself. Taylor once put that, quote, her eyes looked blank, dark black holes. Do you see how the difference or the impact is made through this paragraph versus the other paragraphs? How did it affect the paragraph?
It gave evidence on the prompt.
Today, we're going to work on that, but I'm going to do it through a diagram, so it'll be made easier for you to see visually if you have enough quotes to support your commentary. I created a spider diagram. Some of you might already have seen this before, but it's an organizational tool which helps you create a main topic and create your main ideas. So, let's fill this in together. We'll do it as a class, and then I'm going to have you work on it in pairs of 2 at your table. Main topic. Let's think about this. What is a main character that would be great to talk about? Christopher Sly. So we're going to put in the middle of our diagram, Sly. Max is passing around some quotes which would help you think of reasons why he brought those items. What are some things that you think first off about Sly? Jessica?
That he's a drunkard and a tinker.
Perfect. So we're going to write this in topic 1. This main topic is 1 paragraph. You're going to combine the 2 topics, topic 1, one leg, and topic 2, which we'll get to in a moment, to create the main idea of your paper. Besides that, you're going to have commentary, but what do you think these 2, in total 4 lines are for?
It allows you to put quotes into the paragraph.
Excellent. And I would like someone to see which quotes imply that Christopher Sly is a drunkard.
It says, "What would you make me mad? Am I not Christopher Sly, old Sly's son of Burton Health, by birth a peddler, by education a card maker, by transmutation a bear herd, and now by present profession a tinker, page 6 and page 19.
What would be another great quote? Is there another quote on the sheet that says he drinks? Or is it tinker?
There's one part on the last part of this quote
that starts "Am I a Lord"?
Yeah, it starts "Am I a Lord," and it says, "And once again, a pot of the smallest ale."
Yes.
From page 8.
Name something else that we also know about Christopher Sly. Right.
He's foolish.
He's foolish. The idea is that you combine topic 1 and topic 2 for a combined topic sentence in that first part of the supporting paragraph, okay? Let's find one quote on this diagram where he's foolish. So, I think, and Max and I were talking, we think that the last one would imply, because remember he's fooled into thinking he has a wife? He's really, what? Elijah, a man. So, we're going to write the last quote. Well, we'll see. Come, Madame White, sit by my side and let the world slip. You shall ne'er be younger. But you can put that quote up there, but what are you going to do besides the quote to help support it? Commentary. It's just like the item. Shelby?
Madame White, they say that I have dreamed and slept above 15 years.
Right. What's one of those things they implied to him when he woke up from the drunken?
They're telling him that he's some lord and he's foolish enough to believe it.
Correct. Alright, I'm going to stop there, but realize for the diagram that we're working on today, you can't have topic 2 without another quote, okay? This is someone from last year. In a group of 3, they decided they were going to write about Bianca. They also decided, what do we know about Bianca that we did in our journals? I bet Bianca was shallow, and I think she's spoiled and protective. They filled in all 4 of these lines with quotes that were from last year's character box. And then they created a paragraph. Here they actually forgot to combine these, and that's what we're going to work on. This whole spider equals 1 paragraph. Petruchio is trying to woo Kate. He says, quote, I swear I'll cuff you if you strike again. Page 35. These quotes make me feel sorry for her. A bully suits her, and it seems no one likes her.
If like hitting with the shrew, you kind of feel bad for Kate.
Correct. The 2 main ideas in this paragraph, while not well stated at the top, are many people are cruel to her, which makes you think that she has reason to be shrewish, and it even seems that her father prefers her younger sister, Bianca, to her. Having just worked on that, let's look back at our slide. What would be a great topic sentence? Topic 1 plus topic 2.
To say, Christopher Sly is a foolish drunkard.
What would be a good transition after our topic sentence for that paragraph?
You'd start with topic 1.
Excellent. Do you want to start with a quote, or do you want to start with a segment or a transition of your own words, commentary?
I thought he passed out in the introduction and wasn't actually drinking.
I think at the beginning, maybe he's not seen drinking. How's that? In the introduction, Sly is drunk. What would be a great quote to stick in after you've said,
Okay, I think we've seen that.
Sly is drunk and is in an argument? Comma. You're going to stick a quote in.
Alright. Did you write some notes? Okay, now it's going to get interesting. I want you to pair up, if you can, or triad up if you need to. And I want you to play the role of one of you is the teacher that we just saw, and one of you is the mentor. And you're going to practice giving feedback from what you just saw as it relates to classroom management procedures and engagement. Ready? You'll need to pick who's going to be the teacher and who's going to be the student. Or who's going to be the mentee and who's going to be the mentor.
I'll be the observer.
I like it's for the students.
Alright, this guy rolls over here. You know what you're doing over there? I have 3 tables over here. So, 5 here. If I...
Dan, maybe ask questions if they want clarification.
You guys can pair up. And you guys can pair up. And then you'll leave those
Yeah. Since you didn't get to speak last time. Really good. I really, and I know. I really
like to see that.
It was great. Fast paced.
We'll talk about feedback on what I heard. I'm just curious how you're thinking about it. Okay, my turn then?
Yes.
Alright, so I really like the content, and I like the kids with all the
Oh, that's true.
And nobody's ever explained.
No.
In fact, we never had one, right?
Right. Never that one.
It was a great.
So it's the kids.
Oh, that is true.
I designed it I also like the way that you explain why to have answers and answers here. There is, and I use it all the time. Why they should be here. And so I would really show there's an app called Decide Now. I guess you're just under that time I think I did. Yeah. And then I walking around.
That's almost like pulling the possible 6
Great. I love it.
Yeah. Is it free? Yes.
What do you also do
Was your seating arrangement, and so that's how, but that's just like sticks or something like that. Yeah, she had like probably. Yeah, she had them sent in too.
And they talk them off. So basically what you're telling me is I need to stop asking for like raising your hand and calling them by name. And I also just love something a little bit more random.
No answers, they would just offer answers.
That's
And the terminology.
Too much silence. She was calling her out by name. So, but you couldn't see the student, so I was assuming she wasn't looking around. She was like, Chris.
Right.
I know. They supposed to be raising their hand. And then later on, you're right, they started just talking. But initially, I think they were raising their hand. And then later on in the video, they started calling their I'll try this decide now. What else?
Like I was doing that might be the I don't know for sure. Maybe somebody question. I mean, they'll feel so old. I was watching that, I was like, God, that was so old. Oh, man. And I know it's all I'm sharing you. That's grandparent. That's good that you know. I'm very
One of the things I would do. No, I liked it.
Alright, so I heard a lot of the same things that I was thinking, and so I heard you say very similar things. The question though is, how do we get the teacher to arrive there on their own without you telling them what they need to do? And the tipping point is this. We have to be careful that we are not enabling our teachers. And the thought is, when you're gone, will they be able to figure this out for themselves, or will they are you training them to always find someone to give them the answers? So remember that the goal was to raise engagement in the classroom. So having the feedback that you got, now I want you to switch roles and think, how do I get this teacher to think about raising the engagement in the classroom? And what questions could you ask to help the teacher kind of go, I thought it was great, but now that I really think about it, I realized only one student was talking at a time. and they were the ones I called on were the ones that put their hand up. And I didn't walk the room and right? So how do you lead the teacher, because that's what we talked about with these reflective questions and cognitive coaching questions. So switch roles, and now you know the feedback that you want that teacher to own, but they need to own it without you telling them that. And that's the art of mentoring. See if you can do that. Switch roles and try to lead them down the path towards, I hadn't thought of that.
So when you were up there, I tracked where you were walking. So if you notice, this is your path. You know, talking and praise. Do you notice anything about that path?
And I wasn't
that way.
Have you,
I wasn't around my students, it wasn't a plus one.
So how do you think you can work on things so you can get around?
And thinking technology that she goes, so it's not what we have now. For her to write on the board, so she did, and to walk around, it's hard. I walk around with my slate and writing on the board and writing my board at the same time. And so, I know my first teacher, she isn't there yet. So she's still learning from this.
yeah, well, something.
She's not there yet. But she has experience.
I've seen it done. Some exactly what you're talking about. You didn't see her pushing that at you.
He never wants to
Whispering the answer. Exactly.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's good.
One of the things
Well, because I was trying to
What would you do? You do the pair share and walk around and see answers?
Yeah, Jake is just.
And you may
In fact, Jake does
If he does what Jacob wants to see, it's just right here.
he tracks. Whenever you learned it.
From you? Oh, yeah. Yeah, he literally will track everything.
Where do you think you learned it? Oh, really? From you? Who's a mentor for you? Oh, yeah.
He comes back and he hands you your paper and it's just your track.
seemed like I was just calling about 3 or 4.
He doesn't know, I don't know.
I couldn't.
Mine was a big mess though. Even though it was good.
Yeah. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, so up here, we heard, I'm going to pick up these two. Julie talked about, Jessica, sorry, talked about, right, they got it right?
Yeah.
Is this a Julie card or is it?
Yeah, I always confuse it. But I'm just.
She shared data and talked about, I traced where you walked, and this is where you walked. Basically where she did, didn't she kind of stay in the front room all the time? And she said, so how does that affect the engagement of everybody in the room? And Bob was, well, you know what, I never got to the back of the room, those students were never engaged. He started thinking, you know, one thing I could do is make a pair share, and I could walk around the room listening to a sampling of answers from the different pairs. Now guess what? Bob all of a sudden owns that idea because Jessica didn't tell him, well, you need to go walk around and pair, right? But he kind of, you know what, I can do this. And now, when Jessica does another observation, she's going to be looking for, are they pair sharing? And is he sampling the answers? And she can record that. And she can even say, the last time I was here, you stayed in the front of the room. This time I noticed that you walked the entire room and you stopped at these 4 pairs to answer. Is that still data? Mm-hmm. But now we're showing growth. Now you have a before and after picture. How did it go in the rest of your discussions? Did you kind of arrive at something similar? Was it harder than just giving feedback? Yes. And it felt awkward because you're sitting with an adult, we're trying to pretend and mock this up, I get it. But if you can get there with your teacher and they come up with the idea, even if it's not your idea. I don't think Jessica was thinking of that, or maybe you were, but there's a bunch of strategies that answers the same question, and you can pick one and take a look at it. Now we're looking at those procedures, now we're looking at those engagements. All right, I see the glaze has come over your eyes, and the sugar has dropped out of your body, and you're anxious to get something more substantial than a Hershey Kiss. Would you do me a favor, though, and do the evaluation? There's only like 3 questions in there. Do what?